the industry makes us wrong so much of the time. We're either too much, too aggressive, too ambitious, too technical, or not enough, not technical enough, not ambitious enough, not wanting that leadership position enough, not speaking up enough, not going for it enough, or whatever it is. And I think like women just knowing these stories and knowing that they're not alone, that can be quite comforting. Having that support system, that's the number one thing. And that could be from anyone.
You're listening to KBcast, the cybersecurity podcast for all executives. Cutting through the jargon and hype to understand the landscape where risk and technology meet. Now, here's your host, Carissa Breen.
Joining me today is Jane Frankland, founder from the Source platform. And today we're discussing women in the cybersecurity industry. So Jane, thanks for joining. It's been a while. I feel awful that I haven't had you on the show before, and it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Oh, it's so amazing to be here, Carissa. It really is. Thanks for having me.
Now, Jane, I want to start with, you are probably one of the original people who've pioneered women in cybersecurity. I mean, from my perspective anyway. So talk to me about your journey with this endeavor so far.
Yeah, well, my work with women in cyber really started as an accident. So what happened was in 2015, I happened to write a blog on women in cyber because I picked up an ISC squared report and saw that there were low numbers of women. And I was really surprised because I at that time, I think I'd been in the industry for about 17 years or something like that. And I just thought, I know so many women. This is really surprising. I thought there were more than this. But the thing that kind of like shocked me more was the stagnation. So I'd seen a drop in the numbers of women, and then I saw the numbers kind of stagnating. So what I did was I was already blogging a lot anyway. So I just got onto LinkedIn and thought, let me write about this and my experience. And I was really courageous because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get killed for what I write, what I wrote. But I didn't, it struck a chord. A lot of people, men and women, fed back to me and really enjoyed what I wrote about. And that kind of led me to write more. I wrote for more magazines. And then over the Christmas period, I didn't have my kids for about a week and a half. So I thought I'll just make this a bit more useful and write a report and structure it out and everything like that. And that turned into about 15,000 words. And I thought, well, that's half a book. So although it's got nothing to do with my business, and I knew that a book was a really good part of a product ecosystem, so I knew it was like great for that, but it had nothing to do with my business. So I contacted a publisher who was a friend of mine, and I said, look, I've done this, should I turn it into a book? What do you think? And she said, look, you'd be crazy if you didn't. And so that's kind of like how it all started. And I didn't think that it would actually take me very long to write the book. But actually, it really was a research project. The only kind of like qualifications I had was that I was a woman and I was working in cyber. But really, it was understanding, well, what is going on and talking to hundreds, if not thousands of people to hear their stories and to collect reference points, data points and things like that. So that's kind of how it all began. And then when I announced that I was doing this, just to check, because I also created a Kickstarter project so that I could publish part self-publish. So it's a hybrid version of it. People wanted solutions. So it was just like, tell us what to do. And will you come and speak at our event? And that's kind of like how my journey began. And I started speaking. I wasn't a professional speaker. It was my greatest fear. And so I kind of like traveled the world speaking about this, writing the book. And then I've kind of continued to do that until about probably 2 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, when I decided to create a membership, a platform, and really take it to the next level. And after I wrote the book, I really kind of wanted to help more. But what I wasn't sure about was whether or not to create something purely for women or whether it needed to be gender neutral. And by 2019, I'd made that decision. So I just like cracked on, created a membership, a pure platform for women only, and kind of set about marketing that and selling it. So that's kind of been my journey today, I still speak a lot about women and other topics in cyber, like sustainability. Like at the moment, I'm talking about sustainability, but that's kind of how my journey has gone.
Wow, that's incredible. I didn't actually know the full backstory. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, there's a few things as you've been speaking, Jane, that I really am curious about. You said that when you first started blogging on LinkedIn, you're a bit worried about because, I mean, I think LinkedIn and their quote unquote trolls have diminished a lot. I don't know whether people are using the platform less or maybe they've woken up to themselves, but I'm curious to know. And you said that people were responsive. What were some of the
Yeah.
responses you were getting around stuff that you were talking about online?
Gosh, well, I mean, it was a while ago. I actually included some of those right at the very beginning of my book, but there were comments from guys and they said, look, we tried to get women into the industry, but they just don't want to come. So I vividly remember that. And then also women, I remember this one woman from Australia, actually, she talked to me about how she got into security and what she was doing, like paying it forward, going into schools and helping school children like learn more about this and become familiar with it. So it was it was very, very positive. And I have actually been really lucky because I haven't actually been trolled that much. And certainly in those days, it was, I think it was more minimal. I mean, I have gone through trolling and quite severe trolling where people have been banned from Twitter and God knows what they said. I know some people were sacked from their jobs because of how it went. But my experience by and large has been pretty much okay. But I do deal with trolls in a certain manner, and I don't tend to give them too much of my time.
That's awful. So you're saying that people were trolling you based on the whole women in cyber, or was it something different?
There was one that was to do with right at the very beginning when I was talking about writing a book and putting an event on. And one guy, he was a director actually at a very big brand, and he was really very abusive. And there were a lot of people watching at the time. And I remember one of the ladies from Australia, again, it's just like so coincidental, but she kind of messaged me and she said, that's bang out of order. I'm reporting him. This company are big on diversity and inclusion. Can you give me your email? And so that kind of happened. And he was dealt with, and actually we became good friends. But she showed immense support, for me, and that was really good. And then another time, really, where it kind of blew up was when I had an issue with women in red dresses, and I blogged about this, and I learned an awful lot from it, and it actually turned out okay. But I was standing up for women, and I was calling out something that happened at a very large event in the UK, and this company had gone against the rules. They had women who they were really kind of exploiting in terms of what they were wearing. If it had been a whole theme, which it was, and the guys were dressed up too, it would have been absolutely fine. But because I've been in security for such a long time, and because I've seen an awful lot, I blogged about it, I tweeted about it. And although the company did apologize, the event company apologized actually, and I was found not to have like broken any rules or anything like that, it did all kind of kick off. And it was a really interesting affair, and it was all okay, as I said, and I learned lots about it and shared my learning lessons with my network to help them. But that did kind of start a whole load of research, and also the code of conduct that has made its way to like almost 100, if not 100 event orgers all around the world. So, and that kind of serves to keep all people safe, but particularly women, because women are targeted, so much more at events. There's discrimination, there's exploitation, there's harassment, inappropriate behavior, you name it, it goes on. And this is somewhat, I mean, I have done a groundbreaking substantial study on this that involved over 2,157 women, I think it was, from countries like the Americas, UK, Europe, Middle East, Africa, like literally pretty much every continent, Oceania, just so that I could hear from women and get their view on what exactly was happening. Because typically we hear from America, we maybe hear from Canada, we maybe hear from Australia, we maybe hear from the UK, but typically we're not hearing from other countries. So for me, it was really important to get a world women's voice in cyber on what was going on.
Wow, that is crazy. I can't believe someone would go that far. And I'm just curious to know, so this director you're referring to, what was the impetus to go to that extreme level? Like, okay, fair enough, maybe he disagreed with you, but did he have to go public? I don't understand
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, always to some people. I mean, I immediately kind of thought, what's going on in his life? You know, is he drunk? It was a Sunday night. You know, is he drunk? Is he getting a divorce from his wife? Does he hate women? Like, what's going on? So I was very terse and professional with my response, which is how I always am. But who knows what was happening with him? And quite frankly, it's just like none of my business. That's his business to sort out. But it's very, very typical. I mean, like when I was being trolled extensively on Twitter, I remember one of the guys in cyber saying to me, man, he did that when one of his friends stepped in and said, look, back off, Jane's a good person. And he said, I'm so sorry. He did apologize. And he said, I'm so sorry, but my natural default is to be the aggressor, the attacker. And, please accept my apology, which I did, and all was fine. And then some other people kind of steamed in and said, how do you feel about a man like coming to your aids and all of that? And I really didn't I really didn't care at all. It's just kind of like, thanks very much. You're a decent person. I appreciate that. I don't really care about that at all. But it was really interesting. It was pretty horrible to see, how people reacted. They just brought their own agenda to it. They didn't find out what had happened. They were incredibly abusive. But this is how, how it can be, particularly on Twitter. It's absolutely horrific. And women's voices are being silenced. Absolutely. And they're being silenced by all types of people. So it's not a case of it's just men or it's just this particular type of man. There's a whole variety going on. Professors, C-levels, men, women. It's really, really unpleasant.
Yeah, wow, it sounds it. This is pretty full on stuff. So, okay, where do you believe this behavior stems from? So you're saying before the man on Twitter, the aggressive one. Where's this coming from? Like, what's the reasoning? Like, are they threatened? Do they feel inferior? Do they feel that they trying to put other people down to make them feel better? Because again, this seems very counterintuitive to the whole diversity and women in security. This doesn't sort of incentivize women to work in the field based on what you're just sharing with me today.
Well, not at all. And that's why many women don't speak on the record about it. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, there is a lot that goes on. And also when women do speak about it, they can be accused of complaining, or it's, I was allegedly assaulted by someone at an event, and he came after me because of the work that I do. It was actually at a charity event, and a charity event about abuse. It was not good at all. And I was really lucky. And a guy did come down because people heard him going for me and called one of my male friends, and he came down and got the guy away, allegedly, because there was an investigation which found nothing. So yeah, it's people are, I think they feel, some men may feel threatened. I can't speak for them and why they do these types of things. I mean, particularly when there's drink involved, the behavior just becomes really unpleasant for some, and I'm going to say men, so yeah, that fuels it. But it's not an excuse. Anyone can have a drink and it doesn't mean that they're going to behave like that. It's just that it's more common to see that type of behavior when certain individuals have had something to drink, a lot to drink.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on that front. So I'm curious to know, do you think that this behavior is more rampant in cyber, or do you think it's like this across all industries? So whether it's like male dominated, so like finance, mining, do you think it's just, I mean, it's hard for me because I've been in this space a decade. So it's a little bit hard for me to sort of pop my head up and say, oh, well, it's happening. It probably does happen everywhere, but it feels quite intense in this field though.
I think you're going to see it more. I think you're going to see it more in some professions. So, I have done some research, not extensive research at all on this, but I know, say, when you look at, and it's very sad, medics in the UK, the National Health Service, there was some research done on sexism in the national for healthcare, and it's awful because it's healthcare. And that was really pretty horrific. I can't remember what the numbers were, but it was really high. I know when I've looked at tech, because when this bit of research that I've just been referring to with the data set of over 2,000 women, I saw a report that was done for women in tech at conferences, which really kind of inspired me to do this. And there were 500 women in that data set, and the numbers were pretty similar. So one in 4 women who were attending IT events or cybersecurity events. It's actually it's 1 in 4 for women, but attending a cybersecurity conference or event said that they'd experienced sexual harassment. That was what I found, and that was very, very similar for women who attended IT events a few years prior to that. So I do think it is. It's not, I know it goes on in other industries, but like I said, I haven't done extensive research. I did see medics, and I also know that it's pretty horrific in law as well. Absolutely horrific in law.
1 in 4. That's pretty high.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Were you shocked by that sort of statistic, or no? Obviously not.
No, I wasn't, because I'd seen the Women in Tech report. I just thought it was absolutely bang on. It was exactly the same. In my report, I wasn't just looking at harassment. I was looking at a few other things, but just like sharing about the harassment, 12% of women reporting it were doing so on more than one occasion. So this is repeated incidents behavior. When women were asked if they knew the rank of the sexual harasser, 35% of women reported they were executive or top level management. When women do, yeah, exactly. But that wasn't a surprise. That wasn't a surprise at all, because of the stories that I'd heard, because of my experience as well. When women do report harassment, it's often dismissed. And when women reported sexual harassment or inappropriate behavior to the event organizer, the majority said that they were not happy with how it was handled. So other things that are really common are that the code of conduct, say if there is one, is not visible. So yeah, it's not great, but that it can be improved. It can be improved.
So would you say, Jane, if you had to boil it down to the biggest reason as to why there are less women in the field? I mean, I probably know the answer to this, but the reason that we've spoken about already, are those the reasons why we have less women in the field?
I think it's really hard to say, because there isn't the data. So the research hasn't been done. So research has been done by some companies, and that's great. It's really good, even if it has changed a bit. So there is more reporting being done, but typically it's looking at how many women are in the industry, say, and that those figures can vary. There hasn't been any research done on why women are leaving. I've looked at research, but it's pretty old research, and it's research that is to do with women in tech, and that goes back to 2016. And the research that was done then said that over 50% of women were leaving tech before they reached 35 years old.
Wow, that's pretty young.
Exactly. And if we know that a lot of women are career pivoting and they're coming into cybersecurity, at a later stage, then that's worrying. I heard the other day from someone, and again, it was anecdotal. There was no reference to any research or anything like that most women leave within their first year because it is so tough. But again, it's just like, that's anecdotal. That's a story. Where's the research? I want to see the data.
The comment you said, and obviously it's anecdotal, but so tough. What's tough specifically? More so the challenges that we've spoken about already today? Would you say that's the driving factor?
Oh, it can be. It's tough depending on what the organization is like. So, if women are coming in now, they're experiencing remote or hybrid working, mostly remote working, I think. So, if the onboarding processes aren't good, then they're just being left to it. So it's very easy when people are busy and they're bombarded with things and they're just getting on, and maybe they are inadequate leaders, which many of them are because they're not invested in it. They might have taken a leadership course, but that's it. They're just being left. And then if women aren't speaking up or they don't have someone to turn to, I mean, the amount of women that I've spoken to and counseled and they've ended up staying because it's been the right decision for them at that time is immense. It's an awful lot, but they don't have anyone to turn to, and they might be fearful of appearing not strong enough or resilient enough, or maybe it's just me, I'm the problem. So kind of going inward and making themselves wrong. So gaslighting themselves rather than kind of like reaching out and going, help, is this like normal? Should it be like this? Or this person said this to me, should I just ignore it? Or I'm being asked to do this and I'm really struggling with the amount of learning that I've got to do, with the amount of work I've got to do, and maybe I've got a family or I've got relatives to care for or whatever it is, and I just can't cope, but I feel like I can't say no, so I'm taking it on, or I'm being forced to take it on. So there are so many different labels and things like that, and there are so many different situations, for women who are coming into the industry. And there is also a lot of bullying that goes on in the industry, and a lot of unintentional bullying, that goes on as well. So it's really hard, and women are being told by other women that they have to work really, really hard, and that it is tough. And so they come in and they work at twice the speed or 10 times the speed. And it's no wonder that they get burnt out. It's no wonder that they become stressed. It's no wonder that the quality of their work drops. Or if they do go away to have a family and they come back, why? And they can't work at the same intensity. And people look at them and go, well, she's kind of like dropped off a bit, or you get a comment like, because she hasn't, wow, I've worked with some incredible women even after becoming a mother. So comments like that, literally are said all the time.
Yeah, it's so true. And you are right, especially women do have to work double, twice as hard. I can understand, I can relate to that. You said before unintentional bullying. Do you think that perhaps people maybe aren't aware that they come across aggressive, and then they're probably not aware that they're bullying people? Is that what you mean by unintentional bullying?
Yeah, or it could be passive aggressive, so yeah, absolutely. And some people kind of think, well, that was done to me, so that's how it is. It's almost like stripes, it's toughen you up. And we've got a whole variety of people that have come into our industry from lots of different kind of sectors, whether it's military or law enforcement or teaching or police, whatever it is. And I'm not saying that those people do that, and kind of like demonstrate that behavior at all. It's just that it's so mixed, and it is really prevalent, and people are getting away with it. And they're getting away with it because there is this culture of fear. Women's voices are being silenced in particular because there's fear of being sacked. And there are stories about women being sacked for speaking up, or about logging it with their manager or HR and them just being ignored.
Well, yeah, I think you are absolutely right. I think, again, I hear certain stories myself. I've experienced certain things myself as well. I think that that's why I wanted to bring you on the show, because I don't really have the answers, and I'd love to, soon talk about maybe some solutions that people can perhaps, learn from you today. But before we sort of do that, you mentioned people are getting away with it. How do we keep people responsible and accountable? So you mentioned before, even if the event organisers, the response from certain people were it wasn't handled correctly or they didn't do anything. Do you think that stems from they're not sure about how to handle it? Or do you think they know how to handle it, but then was like, okay, let's just sort of do a half job at handling it?
It could be both. I think again, like I've not done any research into that, but again, from stories and things like that, I think most of the time people don't understand the procedures. They haven't had the training and things like that. I mean, most event companies are not very well run at all. You know, it really is the odd one that is really well run and people know exactly what they've got to do. So I would say it's more the former than the latter. But I remember one woman who was assaulted by a man at an event, and she spoke to me, she spoke to the event organizer, and the event organizer spoke to the guy saying, you know, he's a really good guy, you know, he donates to charities and things like that. And what they asked her to do, they said, well, you know, can we basically put it right by donating to a women's charity? And also he's agreed to like come on and talk about gender diversity and things like that. Now, they really picked the wrong woman to kind of say that to, because she was pretty fierce and she did take it to the police and she took it to the court. But that's just an example of how it can go. So it really just does depend, you know, on who's doing what. I know my experience with an event organizer was not positive at all.
Gosh, it's not great to hear that, and I'm saddened by that response. So yeah, again, that's why I wanted to bring you on to sort of share some light about the field. Do you think it's getting worse though? I mean, you've been in the field for a while. It is. Yeah,
I do. I was chatting to a guy about this actually recently, just messaging on LinkedIn, and he was saying the same thing. I do think it is getting worse, but that could be because I've been doing this for so long and I've been hearing it for so long. My kind of experience is that there's a lot of lip service being paid towards it, virtue signaling. People have endless amounts of time just to do more and more meetings, and you know they can extend for a year or longer. Budgets aren't being set aside. You know, if any investment is being made into this, it really is on looking, I think, the part in terms of their reporting and things like that, and maybe websites, you know, so that they can look as if they have women. You know, maybe they'll get a woman speaker in, and maybe they'll do a women's network. But like I said, from my experience, the budgets, the investment, that's not there. It's just tomorrow, or yeah, we can't do it, or our budget's been withdrawn, or this person's left, or whatever it is. It's not a high priority for them at all. They just want to look as if it is, and they want to get up on stage or promote themselves as being a company that invests in women, and they don't.
Yeah, okay. I want to get into the virtue signaling. I'm a walker, not a talker, and I think there are people that do this for, like you said, lip service. I think it's PR related as well. So how can we sort of tell if a company's being genuine in what they're saying? Because you are right. Anyone can get up and say, "Oh, I believe in gender, diversity and this and that," and then an hour later he's having a go at someone at a conference. Like, doesn't quite add up. So, is there certain things that you notice that maybe would sort of indicate that a company is disingenuous?
Well, I don't know if I would notice it. I mean, from my interactions with them, I would, because how long does it take them to book a meeting? I had one company, a bank, it took them 8 months. In fact, two companies, 8 months to get a meeting. And then with one of them, they cancelled the meeting 20 minutes before. Like, no reason, just cancelled it. And so for me, it really is speed. Like how, like what priority are you giving to this? Knowing budgets and things like that. I mean, I've interacted with people and they've just been like, I don't know what, can you propose for this? I don't know what our budget is, but can you just give us this, this and this? And it's just like, how can you not know what the budget is? I mean, that's just like ludicrous. It really is. So yeah, there are too many time wasters.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I think that, again, a number of people, it's very easy to get up there and say something, but are you practicing what you preach at the end of the day? The answer varies, but probably maybe more no. So I'm curious now, okay, what can people start doing? let's get into solutions, let's get tangible results. I mean, I've spoken to men about it as well. I think some of them maybe are unsure, or maybe they don't get the buy-in for, like you said. So I really want to hear from you, Jane, like what can people really to give, I guess, get an outcome to make the industry better, to actually encourage other women to work in this space. Go for your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, first of all, read my book. I mean, Microsoft said, it's the only book that actually tells you what to do. So, I mean, that's just a no-brainer. And, I don't get rich from my book, literally at all. But read my book. That's a great start. Again, I know so many people that haven't read my book, but pretend that they have. And again, we'll get on the stage and things like that. Read my book, and be open to the possibilities. That's number one. I've got a 47-page report, which is an assessment. So if there's a company or a leader there who's interested in this, they can take that assessment, they can take that quiz. They can engage me, or have a discovery call with me and see if we're a good fit, and then engage me. I mean, that's another kind of thing that they can do. It depends, as for kind of like other measures and things like that, it really depends on, I mean, there are just so many. But it depends on the person, who they are, what their position is, at a company, what their appetite is, how much time they've got. Most people, when you talk about this, will always bring up schools and education, and let's get into a girls' school or go and speak to children, specifically girls and things like that. And that's all great, and it really is, and that does make a big difference. It really does, but it's not going to make a fast difference. It's not gonna help in the immediate kind of future, because that takes time, to come about. And also, if that's not kind of sustained, then those young girls can drop off and go off and do something else, like law or teaching or whatever it is, music or drama, whatever it is. So that has to be kind of sustained. So it really does depend. It depends on where they're at, how much time they've got, and their responsibilities.
So going back to the accountable side of things, now a few years ago, a really great friend of mine, he's in the industry, and I posted a video, and this man who isn't even our field, to be honest, completely different field, not cyber. Mm-hmm. And he said, "No one asked you, woman." I didn't see it, but other people did. And then I saw it. And the thing that got so crazy about this story, and this was going back maybe 3 years ago, people started saying, "I can't believe you said woman on it. What's wrong with you?" And you got called out. Long story short, he then tried to, call their switch number, sent a bunch of emails saying, "Oh, someone stole my laptop," wrote that. And then the comment was edited to say Carissa instead, to, I guess, appease the comments beneath it, which was why do you have to refer to her as a woman? It's ridiculous. And yeah, long story short, a friend of mine in the space actually doxed him online. He goes, "I don't normally do this, but this is really unacceptable." And the amount of people that just piled on, I've never heard from that guy ever again. I actually couldn't remember his name, where he worked, but he sent a bunch of emails saying, "Can I please speak to Carissa?" And I was thinking, no, why am I going to, because now you've been publicly shamed, I'm not going to waste any more time speaking to you to give me a fabricated story that someone stole your laptop, to then edit a comment and then they stole it again. I just don't believe it. I wasn't born yesterday. And this is the crazy behavior that's happened. And then I think as a result, I think the guy was a bit rattled that he was held accountable. Now, I don't like to publicly shame people, but I've seen people say, if this was a person that's done this, we should know who they are. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no shame, no blame, just better business. I mean, that's kind of how I try to be. So even with the code of conduct, with the events, I mean, that went through lots and lots of lawyers and a lot of participants, and we all kind of said no shaming, or no kind of lists being compiled and things like that. And I know there are event organizers, who have done that. I mean, look, I certainly on Twitter, I called in the cavalry. So, I got some really hardcore people who were they were taking them down, and these are like brilliant people and really smart, and just literally had a field day with some of these kind of trolls, for want of a better word. So, I didn't kind of shame or anything like that, but you do need support. And I had people, when I was being attacked online, who came to me privately and said, look, are you okay? I'm really sorry that I can't comment. I'm frightened, or my boss might see, or a lawyer has advised me not to do this, and so on. But I want you to know that I'm thinking of you, and I want to check that you are okay and you're coping okay. So I think shaming, and I don't like shaming at all. It's like, I always seek first to try and understand. And I know some people can be vile and horrible and dangerous, but I always try to understand. And I think if you're shaming, then you can literally put fuel on the fire. So I don't think it's the right thing to do. But you've got to do what you think is right.
Yeah, I'm definitely of the same opinion. I think that, again, I think that this whole person's story was just a complete lie, and I think people were over it and were just like, no, we're just going to expose this person. And I haven't, like I said, I haven't heard from that guy since. I couldn't remember his name anyway, so if I walked past him in the street, I wouldn't know it was him. So I think that it's no real right or wrong way. I think that I'm mindful and I'm cognizant of how other people treat other people online. So, for example, if someone comments on your post that wasn't friendly, I would probably be mindful about what they potentially say to other people, because I think it shows people's true colours by how they interact with other people online as well.
I did contact some employers as well. It's just like, do you want your brand associated with this, this language, this behaviour?
No.
So just kind of alerting them to it. And like I said, one of my friends in Australia, the first time it happened, she got in contact with the company. That wasn't me. I was just copied in. So we can all be supportive of one another and come to each other's aid, so that we're not struggling on our own. And we can do the right thing by certainly, alerting companies, because if this is happening on social media like LinkedIn or Twitter, this is what we do. You can just do a search and find out, well, who is this person most of the time, and deal with it, with their employer that way.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I've always found interesting over the years. Like, we can see who you are and where you work and what your position is. And I think in the past, people have been, called up by the HR saying, like, why are you doing it? It doesn't set a great image for the company. And I mean, you don't have control over what people post online, but if someone's going around and putting malicious comments on people's posts for no real reason, it's awful, and it reflects badly on them as an individual, but also company as well. And it's something I've never quite understood. I also think as well, like with comments and people asking me, like, how do I handle it on social media? Like, you can be very polite, professional, but I think you can be firm as well. Like, I've politely pushed back on people online to be like, you completely took out of context what I've said, or no, you should probably listen to the whole thing first before making an assumption. So I don't think it necessarily needs to sort of like lay down and let people walk all over you. But I think there's a fine line between being polite, professional, and then, you don't want to sort of tip over into the other side of just being, I guess, highly emotional and reacting to their awful comments.
I would definitely agree. I mean, I've seen things blow up because people, in fact, it was men. It was men being emotional with one another. And that was, that really was awful. But again, like, everybody loves a bun fight. It's just like, oh, I'm getting popcorn, which is usually what people say. Or, if it goes on, sometimes like, I'm alerted. It's just like, Jane, have you seen this? Or like, check this out or whatever. And it's people watch. And so you do have to handle things in a professional manner, because people are watching and they are looking to see how you are handling it. But equally, silence is very powerful. So sometimes, actually not responding and letting it go is the right thing to do, but you have to kind of like feel your way through it, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. So when you said before women's voices are being silenced, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's literally they're frightened to say things. So whether it is online commenting, whether it is at their organization, if things are happening, it's just like, well, what's going to happen to me, because there may be a story that they've heard at their organization or somewhere else about a woman who has spoken up about inappropriateness or bullying or too much work or whatever it is, and they've got fired, or they're now being watched very carefully. So it's almost like a mark against them. Oh, she can't cope, or she's asking too much questions, or she's causing trouble. So they can keep quiet. It's just like, no, just like pick your battles, like don't say anything, don't speak up. You're a target, you're a minority anyway, so you stand out more. So all of that goes on online, on social media, and outside of it as well.
So do you have any sort of advice, Jane, maybe for people, women who are listening, that is there anything that they can sort of take away from today's conversation that they can, yield for themselves to ensure that they have a level of resiliency, or any sort of information that they can take after listening from you today, that some of the struggles that they may have in the industry or with their manager or internally?
Well, it's firstly, I think, for them to know that they're not alone. So these troubles are there. Like, so many women go through them, and that's why I think having a women's network is really useful, because these stories can be shared and advice can be sought. So it's not simply a case of, well, these women-only networks are really good for like career development and things like that. Yes, they are. Research has found that a woman can advance 2.5 times as fast if she has access to a female network, an inner circle of women where she can ask questions, privately and safely, as well as having another type of network, which is far more varied and isn't kind of like gender specific. So, yeah, I mean, it's to know that they're not alone, to speak to other women, like, and to speak to their mentor if they have one, or, they can always engage a coach if they want to do that. But really, it's speaking up, it's speaking to someone about this, and certainly not gaslighting themselves, not making themselves wrong, because it's so easy for that to happen, and the industry makes us wrong so much of the time. For example, like, women don't apply for jobs, so it's women's fault. Women don't speak up, it's women's fault. Women don't take enough risks, it's women's fault. Women just have to take more. Women are never enough, so that's a message that that we as women hear so much. We're either too much, too aggressive, too ambitious, too technical, or not enough, not technical enough, not ambitious enough, not wanting that leadership position enough, not speaking up enough, not going for it enough, or whatever it is. So, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I think, like, women just knowing these stories and knowing that they're not alone, that can be quite comforting. It's not okay. It's literally like, okay, this is how it is. Now I've got to deal with it. So I think that can help. So yes, having that support system. That's the number one thing, having that support system. And that could be from anyone. It doesn't have to be from women. There are so many great people out there. There are guys in my network who are absolutely fantastic, so supportive. I learned so much from them, not just about the industry, but about like behavior and whatever. So, really it's having a strong support network. And I would add, having a women's network in addition.
So how can the industry support you, Jane, in what you're doing and the beliefs that you foster and your values?
It can actually start investing in me, because I'm just really tired of companies coming to me and wanting free advice. So it's just that I produce so much podcasts, videos, blogs. I've got a whole, even like this year, I just did a quick count the other day as to my contribution, talks, like there is just so much that I do for free. So if a leader, say, is really wanting to change the situation, then they can come and have a meaningful conversation with me, expecting to invest money and not get something for free. Because this is something that happens again with women. We're asked to do more, take on another job, or to do something for free because that's just the stereotype. So yeah, if a company, a leader wants to have a meaningful conversation then about this and get that transformation that they want, they can invest in me and the work that I do and not expect to get the advice, the consultation, consultancy for free.
So Jane, thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about a real issue that exists in the market and being very forthcoming about it, because I think it's something that does need to be addressed and it does need to be heard. So thank you so much for your time and your insight today.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thanks, Carissa. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope that you found today's episode useful and you took away a few key points. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to get our latest episodes.
This podcast is brought to you by MERCSEC, the specialists in security, search, and recruitment solutions. Visit mercsec.com to connect today.
If you'd like to find out how KBI can help grow your cyber business, then please head over to kbi.digital.
This podcast was brought to you by KBI.media, the voice of cyber.